Las Vegas Sayadaw, the four kinds of death. We studied the four kinds of planes, right? They include the four woeful states, apaya, the sensuous, blissful plane, kamasugati, the material plane, rupavakara, and the immaterial plane, arupavakara. When we divide the 31 planes of existence into four groups, we call these the four kinds of planes. We studied the four kinds of relinking. We've been studying rebirth consciousness, right? We have four kinds of rebirth consciousness: for apaya, for kamasugati, for rupavakara, and for arupavakara. We've also studied the four kinds of kama. Now, we go to the four kinds of death. As all of you know, our life is not certain. Death is certain. We will die one day. So when we die, there is the advent of death. We will die through 1. The expiration of age limit. 2. The expiration of reproductive kamic force. 3. The expiration of both age limit and kamic force. Or 4. The intervention of destructive kama. These are the four advents of death. Any one of these, and we will die. It may be the expiration of our age limit. It may be the expiration of our reproductive kamic force. It may be the expiration of our age limit and our kamic force. Or it may be the intervention of our destructive kama. Then we will die. Let's explore the first one a bit. We already studied lifespans for the celestial and Brahma worlds and learned that it is exact. But for the human world, we don't know exactly. Nowadays, on average, people live until about age 75, right? Perhaps we might live as long as 80 years. If a person had good reproductive kama, maybe they did many meritorious things in their previous life. Perhaps they could live for 500 years. Yet the age limit for humans tends to be about 75 years. Sometimes, a person might even live to 100 years. But soon enough, they die. We call this death through expiration of age limit. We can't claim that someone in the human world might live to the age of 200. Why not? Because age limit will limit the length of human life. Now let's talk about the second one, 158 process-freed. A human being might have the potential for a long life, perhaps 100 years, but one's reproductive kama might lead to a person's death at the age of 1 year, or perhaps even 1 day. Some humans die immediately after they are born. This is because their reproductive kamic force had limited power. Some people live only 1 day, while others might live for 10 years or 20 years, right? These are illustrations of how some people die through expiration of reproductive kamic force. Next, let's explore the third one. For some people, their reproductive kamic force can make them have a long life of perhaps 75 years. Their age limit is also around 75 years. A person who dies around the age of 70 or 80 might have reproductive kamic force that disappears as the age limit reaches its conclusion. We call that simultaneous expiration of both age limit and reproductive kamic force. Last, we'll talk about the fourth one. In the human world, we could have a long life of about 100 years, or perhaps we might live the standard 70 to 80 years. But intervention of destructive kama, what we've done in previous lives, which we already studied, might trigger a death by car crash, a gunshot, or perhaps suicide. The human age limit might be 70 or 80 years, right? And their reproductive kamic force might also let them live until 70 or 80 years. But if this destructive kama gives its result, a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old might die in a plane crash. These are the four advents of death. Everyone will die via one of these. We can think about our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, our friends, someone we know who has died. What number was it? 1, 2, 3, 4? It'll be one of those. It'll be that way for us, too. We cannot escape from these four. Any one of them could be the avenue. Our life is not certain, but death is certain. If we die through expiration of age limit, expiration of reproductive kamic force, or through the expiration of both, it's called a timely death. If we die through intervention of destructive kama, it's called an untimely death. See? People die by timely death or by untimely death. This is our life. The scriptures talk about the advent of death in terms of an oil lamp. In those days, people used oil lamps. They'd put oil in a lamp and use the lamp for light. The lamp may extinguish if the wick is exhausted. It may extinguish if the oil is exhausted. It may extinguish if both the wick 159 Las Vegas Sayada and the oil are exhausted. Or perhaps something extraneous, like a gust of wind, will extinguish the lamp. Our life is the same. Like an oil lamp, when the wick is gone, the light will go out. Or it will go out if there's no longer oil, there's no longer a wick or oil, or if there's wind or something else that causes the light to extinguish. So now we know about the 4 advents of death. Now we'll talk about something that is very hard to understand. We'll talk about life after death. Life after death. When we're thinking about death, sometimes people might say, there's nothing after death, there's no more consciousness, it's finished. But it's not like that. We need to study the procedure of death and relinking. Life 1 and life 2. Life 1 is this present life and life 2 is the next life. How are they connected? Some people will say that after death the body stays at home for 3 days or 7 days before being reborn in another life. But that's not correct. So we study the present life and the next life. We have life 1 and life 2. Patisandhi means relinking consciousness. It is the beginning of this present life. After Patisandhi arises and ceases, Bhavanga, life continuum, arises. After Bhavanga, there could be any Siddha except relinking. It could be Bhavanga, 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 over and over. If there is no Bhavanga, then we have no life. We die. That's why Bhavanga is very important. It is the cause of our life. What is the object of Patisandhi and Bhavanga? Kama, Kama-nimitta and Gati-nimitta. Relinking consciousness and life continuum, take these objects. Before we died in the previous life, this Kama appeared to the 6 sense doors. We took this object. Then there was Atita Bhavanga, past Bhavanga, Bhavanga Kalana, vibrating Bhavanga, Bhavangupacheda, arresting Bhavanga, Pankadbharavajjana. Before we die, this entire thought process arises, followed by Kakovinyana. If we see a visible object in that moment, as an example, if we hear something, it would be Sotavinyana, and so on. Sampatichana, receiving Jhavana then arises 5 times. Although Jhavana normally arises 760 process-freed times, it is very weak before we die. After Jhavana arises and ceases 5 times, Tadaramana, retention or registering consciousness, may arise. We already studied the 4 kinds of death process, right? Perhaps after Jhavana, there may be Tadaramana and Kuti. Or perhaps after Jhavana, there will be just Kuti, no Tadaramana, as there will be no retention or registering consciousness if the object is not clear. Or maybe after Jhavana, there will be Bhavanga followed by Kuti. Kuti means death consciousness, right? It is the summation of that present life. It arises and ceases in the way of death. After Kuti arises and ceases, what kind of consciousness comes? Patisandhi, relinking consciousness, arises immediately. What does relinking consciousness take as its object? It takes the same Kama, Kama-nimitta, and Gati-nimitta as the preceding Kuti. We're talking about relinking Siddha, right? In that moment, there is relinking consciousness and its associated Cetasika, and Rupa, born of Kama. What does Rupa born of Kama mean? This means that rebirth as a human being depends on having a body decad, which we'll be studying soon. Sex decad. Once we have this, we are either male or female. And the base decad, or heart base. This matter, which we call Rupa born of Kama, has differing bodies, genders, and hearts because of our Kama. This matter is born of Kama. These decades arise together simultaneous with Patisandhi. After Patisandhi, Bhavanga arises and ceases over and over. And then, there is Bhavani Kanti. This is Jhavana. It's one of Lobhamula Citta. This Javana, Bhavani Kanti, arises. After it ceases, how many Javana arise? 7. After those 7 Javana, there is Bhavanga. See? During this lifetime, thought processes just arise and cease many times. When we see, we have eye-door thought process. When we hear, we have ear-door thought process, and so on. And then, alas, what comes? The death process occurs, Javana and Kuti, then Patisandhi. See, again and again, it happens. Q. Can you talk more about Bhavani Kanti? This is Javana. Bhava means life. Nikanti means attached. Bhavani Kanti means attached to life. This Javana is unwholesome consciousness based on attachment. You see, anyone reborn, even an animal, is very happy to be alive. They're attached to their life. Human beings are also attached to their lives. It's attachment. Javana. 161. Las Vegas Sayadaw. We should understand how this process works. After Kuti, there is Patisandhi. After Patisandhi, many thought processes arise and cease over the course of our lifetime. Then there is Kuti and death, and then there is Patisandhi again. How many lives does this go on for? The Buddha said that if we were able to look back, we would see that our life had no beginning. Q. Can you talk a bit more about seeing karma at death? Before we die, the death thought process will occur. There will be 5 Javana. We will have seen karma, Kamanimitta, and Gatinimitta. Our good or bad karma will appear to us. If we did bad karma, with Kamanimitta, we will see the person or animal we killed, as an example, and the weapon we may have used to do it. Or, if we did good karma, we might see ourselves offering donations and the person who benefited from our generous actions. This is Kamanimitta. As for Gatinimitta, if we are to be reborn in hell, we might see hellfires or dogs or giants. If we are to be reborn as an animal, we might see a forest or mountains. If we are to be reborn as a human, we may see our mother's womb, a house, or perhaps some clothing. Or, if we are to be reborn in heaven, we may see celestial mansions or angels. This is Gatinimitta. This karma, sign of karma and sign of destiny, these 3 things, will appear to every living being before death. Even a fly crushed by a hammer will experience this thought process before it dies. The mind is very fast. These 3 things will appear just before death. Q. How much time passes from Kuti to Patisandhi? How long do the signs of karma last? Not long. It happens immediately. The object arises, then it's gone. This doesn't mean Kuti is one thing and Patisandhi is a different thing. They are connected through karma as cause and effect. We have to know this. This is karma, right? Whatever we do, our consciousness may be wholesome or unwholesome. Either way, Satana is always associated with it. As one consciousness arises and ceases, another takes responsibility, and there is more karma. And every moment of consciousness, please remember this, has a lifespan of apada, arising, thiti, continuation, and bhanga, cessation. There is always arising, continuing, and ceasing. These 3 things are called the 3 minor instances within one moment of consciousness. After one consciousness arises and ceases, another 162 process freed takes the karma, what we've done, good or bad, until Kuti. After Kuti arises and ceases, Patisandhi takes this same karma, whatever we've done. Some people think that suffering will end after death, and therefore decide to commit suicide. This is annihilation. But it doesn't work like that. After Kuti, Patisandhi arises immediately. What's really important here? Bhavanga. After Patisandhi, Bhavanga arises, and during our lifetime, when no thought process arises, there is just Bhavanga consciousness. When we sleep, or after any thought process, there is Bhavanga. Bhavanga is essential for our life. Innumerable Bhavanga thought moments arise during our lives. Meditators should know about citta processes. One citta arises and disappears, and then another citta arises and disappears. The lifespan of one citta is arising, continuing, and then cessation. After kuti, there is patisandhi. After patisandhi, many thought processes arise during a lifespan. And then there is the death thought process, kuti. Then we are born again. The Buddha taught us how to break this cycle of rebirth and death. See that, right? It's a cycle. How to break this cycle of samsara. How to break this cycle of rebirth and death. What do we need to do? Practice meditation. We need to practice meditation to realize realities. Otherwise, we can't break this cycle of rebirth and death. So we need to practice meditation. How many hours or days do we have to practice? It takes time. It takes many, many days, many, many months, many, many years. Maybe many, many lives even. But for us, I think if we really set up our goal and practice meditation, we can break this cycle of rebirth and death. After you practice meditation, you realize realities. You know that it's not only mind that just arises and disappears. Our matter also arises and disappears. Next week, we'll study this. Lifespan is very short. It just arises and disappears, arises and disappears. When we know realities, what they truly are, we don't have to attach to our mind, our body, our belongings. Why don't we attach to anything? Because we understand realities, so we don't attach. If we're not attached, we don't do evil karma anymore. Even if we do good karma, we won't wish to be reborn again. Some people say, oh, I make donations, I practice meditation, I do chanting, I pray every day. According to the power of my meritorious deeds, in my next life I would like to be pretty or rich. But this is just 163 Las Vegas Sayadaw attachment. You need to understand that being reborn again is just mind and matter, arising and disappearing, arising and disappearing. It's impermanent. Our life has the 4 kinds of advents of death. It's not sure. Our life is not sure. Now we are talking, but maybe in a few minutes we'll be dead. Who knows? If we don't attach, we don't do any karma. We don't want to be reborn again. So, no attachment, no craving, no karma. Even if you do good karma, you don't wish to be reborn again. We call this wisdom. The Buddha said that we have to reborn again. Because of what? This is the big question. Why are we human beings? Where do we come from? We come from craving and ignorance. Why are you attached? Because you don't know. Because you don't realize realities. This is ignorance. Delusion. Then you attach. This is craving. If you don't know realities, this is ignorance. And then you have craving. As you have craving, you have karma. You do something physically, mentally, or verbally. So the Buddha said that we are reborn again because of this craving and ignorance. These are our parents. Why do living beings have to be reborn again? Because of ignorance and craving. We can't say where do we come from. As I told you before, we have our parents and our grandparents, but if we go far, far back, we cannot find where we came from. But as a matter of reality, we can see that our ignorance and attachment cause us to be reborn as human beings. Some are reborn as animals too. When we practice meditation, we understand realities. We understand the impermanence of our lives. And then we don't attach to anything. We don't do anything bad. And then we will gain enlightenment. If we gain the first stage of enlightenment, as a stream enterer, our relinking thought process mostly consists of just 7 lives. For some, it's just 1 life, and then they'll break the cycle of rebirth and death. And then you can enter Nibbana, no rebirth again. Birth is suffering, decay is suffering, disease is suffering, death is suffering. But if there's no rebirth, then there's no suffering. If there's no rebirth, there's no decay, no disease, no death. So we have to practice meditation. We have 40 kinds of meditation. And we also have insight meditation. If we practice meditation just to get peace of mind, but don't realize realities, the three characteristics of mind and body. We can't reach the right way. We cannot gain enlightenment. 164 Process freed. Firstly, we need to get peace of mind. We need to have deep concentration. After we gain deep concentration, we will see what happens in the mind. When we close our eyes and practice meditation, we can very clearly see our mind. When we have a desire or a feeling, we know it right away. When they arise, we know. And when they disappear, we know that too. There's just arising and disappearing, just impermanence. We know this. Our mind, our consciousness, is arising and disappearing. Our body, this matter, is the same, and so we don't attach to them. If we know impermanence, then we know suffering, the changing of mind and matter from happiness to sorrow, and from sorrow to happiness, from lobha to dosa to moha, and from wholesomeness to unwholesomeness. It changes all the time. We call this suffering too. We cannot control our mind or our body. We can't force any situation to remain as we like. We can't control it, right? These things depend on circumstances, depend on causes. Even if we don't like something, we have to face it. This is anatta, uncontrollability. After you understand these things, your greed, hatred, and delusion will decrease. All of your mental defilements will decrease. Eventually, maybe you can eradicate them. At least, when you attain Sotapanna, there will be no more wrong view. You will know by yourself, not by studying, but by practicing meditation. No wrong view. You will know that after we die we have to be reborn again. When we study this, we learn this. But when we practice meditation, we know this. Rebirth depends on our karma. Some might say, after we die, nothing. It's not nothing. After death, relinking consciousness arises again. It depends on our good or bad karma. We have to be reborn again, and then suffer again. But if we practice meditation to the point where there is no longer wrong view, no doubt vicikiccha, about karma and about realities, then we don't attach to anything or anyone. As we know, we don't attach. And then as we do meritorious deeds and know the powerful virtue of our generosity, morality, and meditation, and wish to gain enlightenment so that we no longer have to be reborn again, these are good thoughts. We need to practice meditation. I would like all of you to keep in mind as we study about our minds, especially this chapter, the 31 planes of existence, individuals, Aryans and Puthujjana, relinking consciousness, and the 4 kinds of death, what we have to do to prepare for death. 165 Las Vegas, Sayadaw. What do we have to do? Our lives are not sure. Now we are around 40 years old, right? Our time is so short, so we have to do something important for us. We've spent enough time doing other things. We've been studying worldly matters since we were 5 years old. We conducted our business affairs for many, many years. But what do we have to do as we get older? We have to prepare for death. Our good or bad experiences in life have already passed. Try to practice meditation to see realities. But I want to remind all of you of one thing. We observe our primary object, maybe our nostrils, as we breathe in and breathe out, or perhaps we observe our abdomen. But if we just see breathing in and out, this is samatha, it's not vipassana. If we're observing our abdomen and see the rising and falling movement and make mental notes, it's just samatha if we're only seeing this. Let me explain clearly what we need to do. If we observe our abdomen, when we breathe in, the abdomen rises upward. In that moment, we observe and note it rising. We see that the rising occurs and disappears. Every moment, we see that there is just a rising and disappearing. When the abdomen falls, we observe and note it falling. We do this as the abdomen falls downward. Every moment, we try to observe this arising and disappearing. This is vipassana, insight meditation. We know impermanence. Arising starts, Every moment there is just arising and disappearing. It's not that the disappearing just happens at the end. It's not like that. Step by step, each vibration, observe the object and see the arising and disappearing. We don't only do this when we are observing our primary object. We know very clearly when we observe any object that there is only arising and disappearing. I'll elaborate. When we walk, if we see movement and note walking, then it's samatha. We need to see each movement arising and disappearing. When we see every moment arising and disappearing, every step, this is impermanence. We call this dukkha. It doesn't last long. One step arises and then it disappears. So what kind of object of meditation do you practice? No matter what it is, you should realize 3 characteristics in order to gain the right way. If you don't see these, then it's not the right way. 166. Process-freed Q. What about sensation? What if I'm just feeling it but not knowing it's impermanent? It's the same. Just knowing is samatha one-pointedness. If you just know it, this is samatha. Instead, you should know sensation, vibrating, shaking. When you see it, know that one arises and then disappears. If you see that, it's vipassana. With pain, if you feel the sensation, your mind is on the pain. It's just samatha. If you don't realize impermanence or the other characteristics, then it's not vipassana. You should know that it isn't just one pain that lasts for 5 or 10 minutes. No, one pain arises and disappears, then another comes. It comes very fast, so it seems unbroken. Only meditators can see these realities. We have been studying Abhidhamma. It supports us to practice meditation in order to see clearly. Now, I would like to end this chapter. But, first, any more questions? Q. Can you talk a bit more about the relationship between bhavanga and kamma? Bhavanga is one kind of consciousness, right? Every consciousness has an object. It takes the object. The object of bhavanga is kamma. Q. If I don't have any kamma, then I can't have bhavanga because kamma is the object? Yeah, you should have kamma. Bhavanga takes kamma as the object. A kid sleeps well, right? And when he does, in that moment, what kind of consciousness arises? Bhavanga. Over and over. This bhavanga takes the object from the previous life, maybe kamma, kamma nimitta, or gati nimitta. If this child had a good previous life, he may smile while sleeping because his object is enjoyable. On the other hand, some kids are scared while sleeping. This is because of the object. Maybe they died horribly or they saw something that made them afraid, so they're scared and unsettled in their sleep. Bhavanga takes as its object previous kamma, kamma nimitta, or gata nimitta. Q. If someone is sleeping and having a dream about something happening in the future, is that gata nimitta? 167. Las Vegas Sayadaw. We have 5 kinds of dreams. 1. Some dreams are about what we experienced in our previous life. This is normal. Perhaps you've dreamed about a person many times but you don't know their name or why you dream about them so often. It may be because you knew that person in a previous life. 2. Sometimes we're sick and have a fever. Dreams arising out of fever are because of our bad health. We can't say these dreams are good or bad. They're because our health is not good. 3. Sometimes we'll think about something many times, and then we'll dream about that object. This is because we spent so much time thinking about it. Perhaps we'll get angry at someone and spend a lot of time thinking about them. Then we'll end up fighting with them in our dreams. Q. The other night, I read a novel before bed and ended up dreaming about it that night. Yes, that's because you read about it. 4. Sometimes, a divine being, like a god who protects you and stays around you, will let you dream about something special. For example, maybe you'll have a dream about a friend's house burning down. Perhaps a week later the house burns down. This means that the divine being was letting you know something was about to happen. 5. And sometimes we'll just dream about something that will happen in the future. So we can't say all dreams are good or bad. Dreams will be of these 5 types. Q. What about when you read something and then dream about it? Is that bhavanga, even though it's not from a past life? 168 Process freed. It's just a past object. Bhavanga takes a previous life object. But when we dream, it's not the same as bhavanga. When we sleep well, we can't have dreams. There's no dreaming. And when we're awake, there's no dreaming. But in between, it's not sleeping well or awake. In this space, that's where you dream. Between half sleep and half awake, there in the middle, it's not bhavanga. Sometimes you get angry in a dream, but bhavanga cannot do that. Sometimes you cry in a dream. That's also not bhavanga. Instead, it's jhana. Dreaming is not bhavanga. When we dream, we generally have 5 jhana. They may be wholesome consciousness or they could be unwholesome consciousness. Q. In Tibetan Buddhism, when a lama dies, they go to find him again. But sometimes he's not even born for a couple more years. Can you comment about that? After an ordinary worldling person dies, he may be reborn as a god or angel, and then die again and be reborn in the human world. Or perhaps a person will die and be reborn as an animal. Who knows? Q. What about a stream enterer who has 7 lives at most? What if a stream enterer dies and is then reborn? Can he go a couple of lives without gaining the next level of enlightenment? Yes, he can. You could gain stream entry in this life and then die and still remain a stream enterer for the next lifetime. Maybe even for the next 2 lives. It depends, but no more than 7 lives in total. If you gain enlightenment and become a stream enterer in this life, but don't practice meditation every day in the next life, you may not go higher. It depends on your behavior. So try every day, and then maybe you can go higher in the next life. Q. Sometimes you hear about someone dying and doctors reviving them. Can you comment on that too? A person who is already dead cannot come back to life. The heart can stop for a bit, and they can be pronounced dead, but we should know what death is. We have extinction of psychic life, heat and consciousness. This is death. 169 Las Vegas Sayadaw. We have psychic life and physical life, right? Psychic life, Jivitindriya, we already talked about. Among the 52 kinds of mental factors, Jivitindriya is one of the universal ones. It controls and protects all mental factors. This Jivitindriya is psychic life. If we still have psychic life, heat in the body and consciousness, we are not dead. And if we don't have psychic life, heat and consciousness, we call this death. And death, of course, is not complete annihilation of being. It is just temporary. It is the temporary end of phenomena. After death, there is padasandhi. Death is just temporary. Q. Can a person have extinction of consciousness and heat, but not psychic life? Death is the extinction of all 3. If any one of them remain, then the person is not dead. If there's no heat or consciousness, but there is still psychic life, then perhaps the heat will return. We have the 2 kinds of life, psychic and physical. We'll talk more about this later. Life is Jivitindriya. We have Nama Jivitindriya and Rupa Jivitindriya. These 2 protect our body and mind to survive. Q. I heard about a man from Wichita who had a relative who lived until she was 107 years old. She died, but her heart continued to beat for a while. The doctor pronounced her dead, but said that her heart continued to beat because it was the strongest heart he'd ever seen. Was she alive or dead? She still had psychic life. The doctor misunderstood. She wasn't dead. Please keep in mind that all of this relates back to our karma. Karma is very important and powerful. Q. When I was growing up and going to a Christian church, I wondered why good people sometimes have bad problems, and bad people sometimes have good lives. But no one could explain why. Can you? It's because of our karma. In previous lives, we made good and bad karma. Both will give results. Even if you did bad karma, it might not have much impact right away, but you'll eventually receive the results. What you did previously, you will receive in the present. And what you do in the present, you will receive in the future. We should understand this. 170 Process freed. The results don't always come immediately, but some karma gives immediate results. For example, someone might kill someone and be confronted and shot by the police right away. That's immediate, right? On the other hand, maybe someone secretly killed someone and buried the body under their house. No one knows, but sooner or later, they will be responsible for their actions. It depends on karma. We don't know what we did in the previous life. But in this present life, we should try to collect good karma. This is very important for us. If we do, then we don't have to worry about the future. Just try to be good now, and we'll be okay. Q. If someone who is not at least a stream enterer is reborn in the Arupa plane, they can't gain enlightenment because they need a body, right? Right. An ordinary worldling person in that situation cannot gain enlightenment because he would have no ears. Even if that person reached the highest level, it's not good. He'd have a very long lifespan but would eventually die and have to come back down. In the meantime, there'd be no way to practice meditation. This is for ordinary worldling persons, though. For noble persons, on the other hand, it's a different matter. I'd like to tell you a short story. In our world, we've had 4 Buddhas already. The 3rd Buddha was called Kassapa. In his time, he had 2 monk disciples who lived in a cave and practiced meditation every day. And every morning, they chanted Patana. There were 500 bats also living in the cave. The bats would listen to the monks chant Patana every day, and they didn't harm the monks because they felt happy. Because of this opportunity to listen to the Patana, all 500 bats were eventually reborn in Tavatimsa. They didn't do anything else meritorious in their lives as bats. They were just bats, but yet they were reborn as celestial beings because of having listened to Patana every day. And their lifespans in Tavatimsa were 36 million years. Please reflect on this. 171.